Welcome back to Way of the Wrench, and on today's very special episode I'm going to be showing you how to make bubble flares for your brake lines. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss it. So this is a very short video on how to make a bubble flare on the end of your brake lines. However, there is another common other brake line flare that's used, which is the 45-degree SAE or the double flare. So we need to know which one we're actually needing to make and how to tell if yours is the bubble flare. So let's do a caveman drawing and I'll show you which one you actually need to make. So if yours is the bubble flare, it's going to have the brake line kind of come up like this, and it's going to have kind of like a 90-degree kind of bottom to the flare. And then the top side kind of comes up like a little button, like that. That's your bubble flare. So if you have that one, today's video is what you need. However, if you look at your old brake lines and there's kind of like a funnel 45-degree kind of end on it, and it kind of comes around and goes 45 in like that, that is an SAE 45-degree or a double flare. And like I said, I posted a link for this one so you can go watch the video on how to make that one. But today's video is how to do a bubble flare. In order to do this job, you need a brake line, and make sure that you get the right diameter. So measure your old line and make sure that this matches. So this is 3/16 steel brake line, and you can buy it from your auto parts store in like a 25-foot roll. Makes it a lot cheaper. In order to cut your brake line, you're going to need a tubing cutter like this, or if the space is really tight and you're having to work in the vehicle, you can get one of these kind of compact kind of size ones, but they both do the same job. Get yourself a flat, smooth metalworking file so that you can smooth off any burrs, and I'll show you how to do that. You're also going to need a little bottle of these anti-seize, or Never Seize is a popular brand. This is going to help make sure that the metal does not stick or gall when you're trying to shape it, and it will just smoothly form it to the shape that you need. And of course, you're going to need a metric bubble flare tool set like this, and I will put all the links in the video description below so you can get the exact one you need. Now, this kit here has the instructions up here, and you've got your handle, your yoke, your different adapters, your flaring bar, and your setting gauge / wrench to put the adapters into the yoke. Now, you can hand straighten your brake lines good enough, but if you're making a nice custom car or something like that, you may want to invest in something like this from Eastwood, where you can straighten your brake lines really nice and easy. Now, when you take a look at a tubing cutter, there's a couple things to know. This right here is a little spinning pizza cutter thing. This is what's going to be actually doing the scoring. And then you've got this part here that has two kind of revolving spinning shafts here. That's to support the backside of the brake line as you're cutting. Now, this knob, when we go clockwise and counterclockwise, moves the actual shafts here and puts it closer to the cutting wheel. Now, it's important to know that you are not simply putting your tubing in here and going like this till it comes off. That's not how this works. Okay, so put the tubing sitting in between the two wheels, tighten the knob clockwise till it just touches. Then you can hold the line and do a full revolution. Snug it up clockwise a little bit more, spin it around, tighten it a bit more, go around. And you just keep repeating this process until the line comes off. Like that. One of the 3 reasons why these flares don't work out for you is because you haven't deburred this properly. So make sure that you get this done right. I will show you what one looks like that's been done properly next to one that's not after this. So on your brake tubing cutter, there's always this kind of little thing that pops out like this, and that is for deburring the inside. So what you do is you stick it inside the hole and push down a little bit, and you just rotate the tool until you can get that burr off. And it takes quite a bit of time here. You got to spend your time, make sure it's done really well. Okay, and then when you use the tubing cutter like that, it tends to kind of bulge the material out the end. So this is where that file comes in. So just lightly kind of put it on the end, take that burr off, and you can put it on the side and kind of just give it a little spin, make sure there's nothing on the outside. And then take a look at it. If you take a look at the end of these brake lines, the one on the right is the one that I've deburred properly. The hole's just a touch bigger, looks nice and clean and round, where the one on the left's kind of jagged and has some of that material pushed into the center still. And when you go to try to make that brake flare with that burr, you're going to get a misshape on the end of the flare, and it's probably not going to work for you. So make sure it looks like the one on the right before you start. Now, once you've deburred the end and you're ready to make a flare, always remember to put your actual fitting on first in the right direction before you do the flare. Otherwise, if you go ahead and make your flare first, you're going to find that, that does not go on, and you're going to have to cut that off and redo it. So make sure you put this on first. Okay, first up, take this flaring bar and we're gonna put it in a vise. Now, you don't need a vise per se, but it does make it a lot easier as well as easier for me to film. So I'm gonna be using the vise today. Then you're gonna take the handle out as well as the gauge or the slash wrench. Then take your properly deburred brake line, which in this case is 3/16, and put it in the matching hole. So stamped here, it says it in metric, which is gonna be 4.75. Put it in there. Swing this over and just loosely snug up that wing nut. Then take your measuring gauge, and this part here sits on the top of the flaring bar. And then this little notch is how far the tube has to stick out. So you want the tube to touch the bottom of this notch, and then you can go ahead and set it. So loose the wing nut, slide it up until it touches, and then you're going to tighten this wing nut first. Make sure that this one here where the tube is always the first one. And double check it's the nice right height. Now in the instructions it says to just tighten this by hand, but I find that this never gets tight enough and you always end up just pushing the tube out. So starting with this wing nut closest to the tube, use the handle as kind of like a cheater bar, and we're going to tighten it a little bit extra. Now you don't want to go too much because you can actually break the bolts here and have to buy another kit, but you do want it more snug. Once you've done this one, go do this wing nut. Once again, use the handle as a little bit of a cheater wrench. Okay, and then you grab your yoke and you grab the proper adapter that fits the brake line that you're doing. So in my case, it's 3/16, which is 4.75 millimeters in metric. And now this adapter has a thread on the back. You simply thread that into the end of the shaft there. And then to make sure that's nice and tight, put the handle in the yoke, and then your gauge slash wrench has a little hex in the end here. You can use that as a wrench and just snug that up. And to help make sure that the metal doesn't gall or stick while you're trying to form it, you can use a little bit of that never seize we talked about and just put a little bit on the end of the tip there. That way it won't stick when you're trying to form it. And then take your yoke and put it on over this, and if it doesn't reach, you might have to back this out to begin with. And then you get it on, and then the little pin on the end of the adapter has to go into the hole of your brake line, like that. And then the legs underneath need to be grabbing evenly. So what I like to do is twist it so that the legs for sure are underneath and grabbing evenly. Then you're going to stick your handle in here and we're going to tighten this up. Now the bubble flare is a little bit different than the double flare. There is only one forming process. So all we got to do is tighten this up. Make note of how tight that feels as you're forming the pipe. And when the pressure ramps up, and the nut is hitting at the bottom or the top of the flaring bar, you are done. Okay, right there it's ramped up for the pressure, so now I'm going to back it off. And take this off. And then take your handle out of the yoke and use it as a cheater wrench again to lefty-loosey undo these wing nuts. And then with that nice and loose, you can take your brake line out. And there's our finished bubble flare. You can see there's the 90-degree lip on the backside for the actual fitting to push against. And then there's kind of a round little button top or a bubble top. So, nice bubble flare ready to go back into the car. Don't forget to put all the stuff back in the kit. And if you find things won't close up properly, it's usually because things need to be closed down a little bit. And if you're doing 3/16 brake line all the time, you don't need to take the adapter off. Just remember you left it on there. And that way this kit is ready for you next time. If you take care of your tools, they'll take care of you. All right, so once you have your brake flares done and you've put the lines back into the vehicle, don't forget you're gonna have to bleed the brake system of all that air. And if you're not sure how to do that, I will post a link to a great video so that you can learn how to do that. And as another safety feature, I would also recommend that you get someone else to get in the car, turn the car on so you have the power brakes on, and get them to put the brakes on really, really hard. And what you're going to do is get underneath the car while it's still safely jacked up in the air, get a light, and look at the ends where you have attached those brake line fittings and make sure there is 0 leaks, and that way you know everything's been done properly. There's a wrap in another video from Way of the Wrench, this time on how to do your very own metric bubble flares for your brake lines. If you have any questions or concerns about what happened in the video, put it down in the comment section below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And if you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram? That way you can see what's going on in the shop in between videos. And if I was able to help you out a lot today and get you out of a jam doing your own work on your own car, feel free to support me and my channel so I can continue to make great videos for you in the future. The link to my Patreon is in the video description. Till next time, take it easy.